IPMNation.com.
Live from the Transitional Radio Uplink in Cuenca, Ecuador, you're listening to All Natural Being with guest host Henry G. Noel. What's the G stand for? Giddy up on IPMNation.com. Here's Henry.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the 346th episode of Brian Brody's All Natural Being, the #1 rated show on IPMNation.com, and brought to you by Transitional Radio. Now, we're live this evening on IPMNation.com, Transitional Radio's Facebook and YouTube pages, with fly-on-the-wall video, or as Brian likes to call it, his shunt cam, on Facebook and YouTube, with rebroadcasts on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and a whole host of others. Now, we're broadcasting live this evening from our international uplink studio in Cuenca, Ecuador. And we want to thank our good friends at Wirecast for making it possible for us to be broadcasting globally. We also thank you, our trusted listeners, for without you, things would be very quiet this evening. So we appreciate those listening live on radio, those listening to our rebroadcasts, and we want to thank our fly-on-the-wall video listeners. We do find it far more enjoyable having you participating in the thread and sharing your ideas. So to all of our global listeners from the United States, Canada, Mexico, the UK and Ireland, our good friends in Ecuador, China, Philippines, Brazil, India, Australia, Germany, Italy, France, Nigeria, Turkey, Japan, Singapore, Thailand, Belgium, Sweden, Israel, South Africa, Egypt, Puerto Rico, Kenya, the Netherlands, Colombia, Peru, Greece, Poland, Cambodia, and New Zealand. Thank you for investing your valuable time with us. Now, we realize there are many options out there where you could be spending your time. So thank you for spending it with us. We greatly appreciate it. And we're great to have you here. My name is Henry Noel, guest hosting for the amazing but out of commission Brian Brody. And we are thrilled to be filling in for our virtual hitchhiker. So from our southern garden spot of the mortals, we want you to understand your life is still your labyrinth. And you, regardless of what you think and believe, you get to call all the shots. Now, why subjugate yourself to the whims of others? You were dealt this hand, so why not play it with all the gusto you can muster? And while you're at it, play it the way you want to play it. No one should have more control over your life than you. So why succumb to your critics? Why allow the beliefs of others to derail you from your all-natural being? Don't get caught up in all the BS that others use to demoralize you. Use your primal scream to stand firm, proud, front and center, and don't put yourself in second place. That's why we're here, to be your friend, your friendly force, and to place your heart's highest priority top of the list, reinstating the true wisdom and wallop of your inner whisper, to terminate the turbulence in your life, to garnish the guilt you hold on to and won't let go of, and to streamline your sensibility so you can face this crazy world head on and out brutal a brutal, so you can bring on your own bold once and for all. So get ready for your audio acupuncture treatment. We treat acupuncture points of your chronic philosophical pain, auricular therapy to reduce your anxiety, medical qigong for the healthy mind and body and spirit, and a Reiki session for your rationality, and Jinshin Jitsu for your judiciousness. Are you ready? Are you comfortable? Are you feeling relaxed? Well, then good. Then let's get started. Now, we're trusting everyone has had a great weekend up to there, at least up thus far, and we thank you for joining us on this Sunday evening. Now, we're taking an assessment of the past 2 years and talking about the change and self-renewal that we've been undergoing, the successes, the failures, the good, the bad, the positive, and the negative. The path of self-renewal is not a straight path. It's not a straight line. It meanders like a quiet stream, ever-changing directions as we grow and learn and make adjustments about ourselves. So let's attempt to get into the thread and see who's visiting us this evening. Give me a moment, please, while I try to actually get hold of the thread, because it didn't come up on my computer this evening. So let me see where I have to go get it. I like it. This, if it's not technical on one end, it's a technical on the other. So I'm going to try to click this in. I never got notified that it was there, and still don't have a notification that it's live. So I'll see where I got to go to get this done. Let's see. Let's pull this up. We'll go here and see if it's in here. And it doesn't look like it. Okay, so I don't have a live feed. I will click on this and see if it's up. Yep. There we go. Now we got it. All righty. So now I want to go ahead through here and see who's here. Alice, welcome. Good evening. How are you? It's great to have you here. Thank you. Hey, bro. And Rita, hi. How are you, sweetie? And Lee, Raleigh, welcome. Lee, I tell you what, when you're not on, it just kind of falls apart on me here. Just to keep things going here. And it looks nice and quiet this evening. So, it's typical Sunday. It'll probably people come on in a little bit. So, but I wanted to do a real take a look at what's been going on with the show and with everything since Brian and all of that has started this show. Now, I know I've been involved with the show for a little while, and I've been making several observations, and I'm thinking. I'm going to thank you, first of all, in advance for humoring me with my observations. You've been listening to the show off and on for 2 years, and I'm going to go out on a really precarious limb here and do something I want everybody to avoid. From my observations, I came up with 6 assumptions. And now don't laugh. And I know what you're going to say about making assumptions. And in fact, this is exactly what I tell everybody and why I want everybody to avoid it. But, hey, it's Brian's show, so I'm going to do it anyway. My first assumption is you have to be getting something out of this show that gives you some helpful direction in your life. Otherwise, you wouldn't be listening in and you wouldn't stay tuned to it. So I'm going to make that as an assumption, and that this direction really is important to you. My second assumption is that you experienced some change in your life and you felt it was a benefit to begin tuning into the show and took the presentations to heart. And again, another assumption, and I'm assuming that some of that was the way it was going for you guys. My third assumption is that you were looking for answers to questions that you may or may not have developed, but somehow this show has provided a direction for you to continue tuning in. And my fourth assumption is that you are getting some resolve by listening to the show, and that you are still looking for additional answers and direction, which is why, again, you still tune in. My fifth assumption is that there are some aspects of your life you still wish to change, while there are some aspects that you wish to leave alone or will address at a later date. And my sixth assumption is that you have been on this journey for self-renewal for a while, and that is exactly what you wish to continue doing, so long as you continue to receive helpful information and direction. I'm hoping that I'm somewhat close on at least one of these. Come back to the thread. Dana, hello. Good evening to you. How are you? It's good to have you here. Let's see. Nope, we got pretty quiet. It's okay. Everything's working fine. Thank you, bro. I just want to make sure everything is doing what it's supposed to do. So thank you. Okay. So what I wanted to do, so I was hoping that I hope of the 6, I got at least one of these these assumptions right. And if not, well, I'm going to ask you to bear with me as I continue with what my intentions are. So my guess is that you're interested in continuing this journey of self-renewal, a spiritual journey, but still not sure what to do or if it's worth the effort to change. Now, up to now, we have been providing you many concepts and processes to assist you in your journey of self-renewal and change, and offered many reasons why it is beneficial for you to change. So, for example, how we must change the way we think and feel, our perceptions, our fears, the hate that we harbor, what we should and shouldn't believe spiritually rather than religion, ourselves rather than someone else, and how to recognize when ego is talking rather than us. What we need to change: ego, superiority, differences. What ideas we must give up and what ideas we should embrace, such as separatism, class distinction, and ignorance versus unity, equality, and knowledge. But the overwhelming responses have been, how do I do this? How do I change? What specifically do I need to do to change? And I understand what we say. You get an idea what we do, but I still don't know how to stop myself from falling back on my old ways. I still get angry. Things still bother me, and things still get me upset. So this is part of what I want to try to go through is come up with this whole concept or whole list of things that you can do. And I'm going to take it and break it down one at a time. And we're going to deal with it over the course of the next couple of weeks. So the only way we can answer all of those questions is to change as an individual, and every one of us is different. So we have to understand that. Now, we can set up classes, individual or groups. We can hold seminars, or hell, we can fill up a stadium, actually. But it doesn't really matter. What the fact remains is that change is an individual process and experience. We all know of, like, twins, for example, and the common response to them is, man, they look identical, but God, they're different as night and day. And that's because we have different DNA, different personalities. We have different perceptions and formulate our experiences differently. Change is different for each of us. And each of our perceptions, fears, belief systems are all different. And the experience of change will be different for each of us, even if we're living in the same household. Now, I want to go ahead and catch up here and see what's going on. Wow. Hi, Deb. How are you? It's great to have you. Thanks for tuning in. Whoa. Very good. Oklahoma is represented here. I love it. Hi, Dallas. How are you? God, that's great. Terrific. Okay, then we'll go ahead and continue. So to recognize that we need to change, to reduce the stresses in our lives, or to improve our health, or to simply feel, well, we want to have some, more good days than bad. That's the first step. But the change is an extremely difficult process to comprehend because it is so specific to each individual and requires us to honestly look at our lives. And every aspect of our lives, actually. We are not able to just assume anything. We have to take a look at every aspect of our life. And that becomes an overwhelming task because, well, we have to admit our lives have not been ours. That's the first step. We haven't lived a life of ours. We have been taught this life of ours. And so our lives have been created by our learnings. Our learnings are taught to us by someone else. In essence, we've been living someone else's life and walking someone else's path. And yet we think we know ourselves and believe we know who we are, when in fact, we really have no clue who we really are. We all come from different backgrounds. We all come from different places in our lives. And we're all going to different places on our journey. Welcome, Pete. Wow. How are you? Great to see you. That is terrific. Thanks for joining in, man. That's great. So anyway, we all have different perceptions, different personalities, the way we handle life. And this includes allowing life to handle us. Our backgrounds are different. As different as our education's been different, our upbringing is different, belief systems are different. No two people have experienced the same life, again, even living in the same household. So the best way to experience how to change is to study. Now, you can study with us, or you can study with someone else, or you can study by yourself. But studying forces you to focus on your experiences. And you can't simply avoid the questions because there's always someone in your face encouraging you to face yourself. Experiences, they're the best teachers, and technology has made it so much easier to tackle the long distance issues when seeking directions and definitions. The fact remains, commitment is tough and will be the primary issue that everyone faces when they want to go through a change or do self-renewal. Most journeys of self-renewal take place in the mirror. And you have heard us say this many, many times, the mirror. I always reiterate on how important the mirror is. As you progress through self-renewal and change, you will vacillate between loving and hating the person in the mirror. You see, there's an honesty that has to happen. And as you modify your thinking, your feelings, and your perceptions, this changes. And so you go from loving to hating the person that you actually see, because you can't run from them. Candace, good evening. How are you? It's great to see you. Thank you for joining us. Now, remember that it's taken you a lifetime to get to this point. Self-renewal and changing requires us to unlearn all that we have learned. Strip away all the beliefs that we've relied on and used to define ourselves. Stop everything and begin anew by relearning in a way that is beneficial to us. Now, this isn't a journey for the faint of heart, believe me. It is a commitment, a required commitment. So in lieu of simply placating you and giving you a little to go on, here are some things that I think about, and I think about that you should think about as you prepare yourself to continue the journey of change and self-renewal. And what we'll do is take each one of these, take an evening for each one of these, and cover them in depth. So for the next several weeks, we will cover each of these, of the following in depth, okay? Hi, Candace, how are you? First is going to be honesty. Tonight we're going to cover honesty. Then we're going to cover fears, hate, labels that we all identify with, having thick heads and thin skins. That's been one of Brian's great quotes, great sayings. The role of ego. We will cover ego in depth, as obnoxious as it can get and be boring as it can get, but we'll cover ego. And we're going to do an ego versus inspiration check also. And then I'm going to cover my Holy Trinity, a problem resolution solution. And I may throw my other Trinity in there of greed, selfishness, and apathy, but we'll see about that one. We're going to accept some simple basics. We got to go back to some simple basics. We're going to deal with no human superiority. We're going to deal with nationalism and pride. And we're going to talk about helping others. So we're going to cover each of those throughout the next couple of weeks, and we will go ahead and cover honesty tonight. But now remember, these are my suggestions. And as I stated, we're all different in our pursuits of change and self-renewal. So please add to this list your experiences with the issues that you've dealt with on your journey, the experiences that you've had, the things that you found more important, and email them to me at henry@henrygnoel.com, and I will add your comments and experiences to this list, and we can cover them also and just extend this out for however long we want to do that. But I find it very important. The ones I mentioned are the ones I went through and had to deal with as I journeyed and did this whole change for myself. So add yours to the list, please. I'm absolutely looking forward to hearing from you as to what it is. And again, it's henry@henrygnoel.com. So now, for the next couple of weeks, let's take a look at and talk about each of the above suggestions. This evening, we will start with honesty and show the criticality of being honest, that what being honest plays in our change, in our changing, in our self-renewal journey. It is so important that we understand that we don't change and we don't really develop, we don't really do well on self-realization and renewal if we're not honest. And that is one of the key issues that I want to deal with. So honesty. We live in a world of lies. Understand that. Let's face it. Parents, teachers, politicians, religious leaders, news agency, you and I, we all lie. And we live in a world where lies are not only accepted, but expected. Where lies have replaced the truth, and confronting the lies are open to criticism and referred to as fake news. Where honesty has gone by the wayside, along with responsibility and common sense. We can never succeed if we're not honest, especially with ourselves. We are the greatest envoy for this mission, but the failure to be honest, the fear of facing ourselves in the mirror, and the inability to take the criticisms will cause us to fail because we will be fighting our own egos. Remember, the ego self has too much pride and does not want to lose and will do anything it can to keep itself from losing. So, the greatest tool we have in dealing with honesty is the mirror, as I mentioned before. It is also the most fearful, as no matter how we point our fingers, all the fingers point right back at ourselves. No matter who we want to blame, we are the only ones standing there. We cannot escape the responsibility of being honest because it is us. We are lying to. We have to be honest with that. And if you are willing to lie to yourselves and are willing to accept the lies, it is us we are fooling, no one else. No one else is being ridiculed except us when we are not being honest. The mirror is the greatest tool to force us to look at the truth, no matter how painful the truth might be. Now we hear, and many have said, I want peace in the world. Therefore, I will pray or hold group meditations to change the world. Well, good luck with that. Praying doesn't help because God didn't create this mess. We did. And it's up to us to fix the problems in this world. But we can't affect changes in the world until we affect change in ourselves. The world is but a reflection of us. If we harbor any of those 13 issues, we're not in a position to change the world because it is we who need to change. And if anybody has any comments to this, and please jump in there, Candace. Sometimes I'm too honest and people can't handle it. And there's nothing wrong with that. My dad was honest, honest to a fault. No one would ask him, how they looked because he'd tell them flat out, really how he felt. So yes, I understand that. I used to tell my daughter, when she did something rotten, be honest and don't lie, and you're not in trouble, and we'll set you free. Or lie, and I'll already know. And she usually made the right choice. Absolutely right. Thank you. That's the way we have to be honest. We can't change. We can't fix ourselves if we're not going to be honest. So, since the world is just a reflection of us, and there's nothing we really can do except change us, we can't run. We really can't run a marathon with a ton of baggage. And until we clear our baggage, which is those above issues, we can't change, much less find self-renewal. Our perceptions have been affected by the learnings that we were taught. And as such, the baggage we carry affects our vibration. So we cannot change vibration without changing the resistance to the vibration. And it is all of what we are. That's all of what we are. All of how we think and all of how we react that gives us our vibration. To change our vibration, we must be honest with ourselves and change who we are. By changing who we are, we can affect the changes elsewhere. And you hear so many people talking about, changing the vibration. They meditate, they do all sorts of stuff. And the minute they get done with their meditation, they're swearing about this and, arguing about that person or what's going on in Washington. And I have to laugh about them wasting a whole hour sitting there meditating, trying to change vibration. And they carry all this hatred and all of this animosity on them. And it does absolutely nothing to help them. And it's really a problem. It really is. Let's see. Lee says, can we ever truly objectively see ourselves honestly in more than flits and glimpses? The filters, our filters are difficult to see and even harder to change. And Lee, I totally agree with you. You're right. And it is an issue. And that's why it's so that this change and self-renewal is extremely difficult to do because it requires us to be honest. And if we can't be honest, you can't fix what you won't admit is there. You simply can't fix that. And so we have to do that. And it really is difficult. And people do tend to not be honest with themselves. And it's something that has to happen if we're going to really make the changes. So thank you very much. I really appreciate that. The entire basis of self-renewal and change is honesty. I guess I just said that. If we are not honest with ourselves, how can we be honest with others? If we permeate fear and hate, and the world is but a reflection of us, then how can we possibly change the world except to bring more fear and hate into it? The hurdles we face when seeking self-renewal and change are the hurdles of our upbringing. They are the learnings that we were taught by our parents and our friends and religious leaders, our teachers, our politicians and news agencies. All have contributed to why we think, feel, and believe the way we do. All have provided the excuses that we use to justify our actions and inactions. All have been used to define ourselves and reinforces the arguments that we use to justify pleasing our ego self. We really have a lot of work to do in this whole premise. And that's why I wanted to talk about this, because it is so hard to get people to understand, well, yeah, we're talking about change, or we're talking about, self-renewal. So it's not a big deal. No big deal. We can do that. That's not a problem. But you can't until you really are going to be honest and really willing to do the work, because it's a lot of work. Years, in my case, years of working, trying to get things understood, to understand that my life wasn't mine, to understand that the path I was going down wasn't my path. It was somebody else's that put me on that path, and I just continued on down the thing, looking way out there in front of me, seeing the end of the path. Well, that's not my path. To understand how to stop, how to simply stop. That was the most difficult thing I had to address in going through this whole process. Stop. Just stop. What do you mean just stop? How do you stop? Stop everything. What do you mean stop everything? Well, you got your belief systems, you got the way you were raised, you got all of these built-in switches that you flip here and there in order to justify who you are, or who you think you are. When you stop and you strip away all of the mashugana, as Brian would say, you start to realize you have no clue who the heck you are until you really start stripping it away and going through the process of re-identifying, relearning, doing what needs to be done in order to make you change. And this way, then the world being a reflection of us, it then changes. So when we say, hi, John, welcome, good evening, how are you? Now, people are afraid to be honest because of negative reactions. We are so politically correct any longer, and that is really part of the problem. My dad may not have had a lot of truth at times when things were being said, or when he was alive. But it was interesting because everybody, he wouldn't lie. He would tell you exactly what it was. And the girls in the neighborhood would come over and ask him how they looked. They wanted his approval. And at times he would say, go home, take off all that makeup, put on a little bit of makeup, you look like a hooker. He was bluntly honest, but it worked. The people respected him for that. But then again, we're talking 30, 40 years ago. Now, we're politically correct. You probably end up arrested and put in jail for saying something like that. But this is what my dad did, and I commend him for that. That was one thing. If you ever wanted to be told the truth, go to my dad, because he'd tell you, and he wasn't holding anything back. And I totally respect him for that. So, hi, John. Happy Fun Day, happy Sunday. Hope you all have had a great, wonderful day. Thank you, John, and hope you did too. Hope you had a good weekend. But you're right, Candace. I think people are afraid to be honest because they are afraid of the negative reactions. But if you're really looking for honesty, and we trying to change and trying to self-reflect and self-renewal, we need the honesty. We need it because we need to know what we're doing wrong. And the assessments that we have when looking in the mirror is the best gauge we can go by. So yes, we need it. It's very important for us on this mission to do that. So to continue on this, honesty in accepting the fact that we have an ego. That is the first one. Most people don't even want to admit that they have an ego, and then we say we need it. So that our life as we live it has been under the control of our ego self and not us. I'm not saying that the ego is not necessary, because we do need it. We really do, well, especially while we're growing up from childhood to adulthood. But the problem is, it was never explained to us that the ego was within us. And there will come a time when the control that ego has over us has to stop. And as an adult, it has to stop. That as adults, we would have to regain control of ego and begin making the decisions on our own life and how to live our lives. You see, it isn't about eliminating ego. It's about controlling ego and keeping it in check. And that is the thing that we just don't do, because we were never taught it. And that is where we have a real hard time with this. So, Candace, not being honest, causing a communication breakdown, been through that a lot. Yep. You know it. That's it. Absolutely right, Candace. Joseph, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. So we must have, and we must get that which our ego desires. We never address our needs, always the wants. Only our wants, and it is always because these wants, we live, because of those wants, we live in debt. We are stressed, we work jobs we'd rather not have, because we need the money to pay for the wants that we couldn't afford in the first place. So this is where ego, this is what it does. This is where it drives us. And that is the biggest part of the problem. So our ego self had to have them. And so what did we do? We simply obliged it. We saw it as us, and we just kind of caved in and got it. So honesty is understanding that the self resistant. We have to put the controls in there. We have to be understanding who's talking, ego or us. And we have to learn to accept our limitations. It's taking the lead in gaining control of our lives instead of allowing our ego self to control it for us. Again, it's the mirror. You can't really hide a lot from the mirror. Now, one of the other things that I keep talking about is using the path as an example. So what I want to do is talk about this part of it, of honesty, is being fearless and stepping off the path that you've been following all your life. If we see our path laid out before us with a path leading to the horizon somewhere, it isn't our path. It's a path created by others and controlled by ego. Now, we've been taught our path leads from some distant past to some distant future. Well, the truth is, our path only exists as we take a step. By bravely placing your foot in a new direction, we get to create a new path where we get to embrace the unknown and create the life path of our choosing. Until we can come to terms with our ego self, there is no changing and no self-renewal. Simply, it can't happen. The path we create will be created once we step off our existing path. And with every step we take, we create a new life. Every time we place our foot, we create our path. And every time we remove our foot to take our next step, there is no footprint behind us. Our path exists only in the now. No past and no future. Only the now. And so when you sit down and you look at all of these paths, when images of someone walking their path, all you see is this future. And of course, there's always somebody standing in the middle of the path, so they have a past and a future. Well, we don't. I mean, literally, as we create our path, we remove any remnants, any history, any sign that we were there. One of the Japanese arts is to be able to walk across rice paper and not leave a footprint and not tear the paper, leave no mark, no history that you were there. And that is really what walking your path is, so that every time you lift up your foot, You've eliminated your past, and when you lay it down, you created your future, but at that moment, that future becomes the now. So you're living in the now. It's not that difficult to do. Honestly, also, for let's see, Joseph says, okay, every day gives us a new chance. Yes, it does, Joseph. Every day is a new chance. And we have to see that. We have to enjoy it and embrace it and not be afraid of it, because it is so important that we understand this is what we are designed to do. This is why we're here, to take this and run with it. So, honesty also affords us the opportunity to understand the limits of our five senses. You see, we have learned to place all of our trust in our five senses, and yet our five senses operate within the confines of extremely narrow bandwidth. We have come to define truth by these limited five senses. We see, hear, feel, smell, and taste all of our reality through these senses. Yet the bandwidth of reality stretches far beyond our capability to sense. And what do? Because we can't understand anything outside our five senses, we have determined everything outside our senses is not real and an illusion. We have arrogantly defined truth as what we say it is, based on five senses. And that is extremely limiting to us. That is one of the saddest things about us, that I just wish I could get people to really understand more. We don't know what else is out there because we can't sense it. And we just have to know, we just know that there is something that exists in these other, outside these bandwidths that we actually can sense. It's just that we just can't perceive it. And without perceptions, then we therefore rule it out and we just say, well, it's just an illusion. So, honesty will take us through our journey. Only we can determine where that journey leads us, step by step. Only through honesty will we learn the value of now. And that is the most critical part of changing. Our path is only in the now. The past disappears as we lift our foot, and our future is determined by where we place that foot during our next step. And as we take that next step, the future immediately becomes the now. And that is why it's so important that we do place honesty as probably the number one most important aspect of change. Because why change if you're not going to be honest about it? If you don't believe you need to change, then you're not going to change. And if you think you're right all the time, then there's no reason to change. So this is why I think that honesty is really the most important. So my whole thing is be honest, live in the now, and change yourself. For it is with the honesty of this change, all other changes occur. So long as we can be honest, so long as we can realize and understand that our path, that there's nothing to be afraid of. The unknown is simply an unknown. And eliminate the fears, eliminate all of this other stuff. All these other ones I mentioned earlier will all go away because we don't need them. We don't have to have them. They don't define us. They define our existence as we live it today. But living our existence as we live it today is not who we really are or what we're about. We have to learn a lot of things outside of our comfort zone, outside of our perception, outside of our five senses. And as we do, the world opens up to us and we change, and then we can affect the change because it is a reflection of us. We have to ask ourselves, what do we want to achieve with these changes? Yes, you're absolutely right. And why? What is it that we want to do? Why do we want to do it? It is really, those are key, because if you can't commit to that, then there's no way of, you'll never succeed in changing. Why do we do it? Exactly right, Joseph. John, please, if you don't have the minds.com account, please go there, sign up, join Mindful Conversation. Also continue to tune in to Transitional Radio with Henry. Thank you so much. And Brian Brody, All Natural Being. Thank you, John, so much. Really appreciate it. I'm really glad that you joined us this Sunday. It's great to have you here. But we're going to try to wind this down in about 4 minutes or so. But as we have continued to embark, and that's why I thought, it's been a couple of years now that Brian's had his show on, And a lot of you have listened, from the get-go, right from the beginning. And I felt it was a great time to just start to take a look at it, to really reassess what have you gotten out of it, what do you expect to get out of it, what more can we do to help. These are the things that interest me, and this is what I want to try to see happen for us, to be able to give you information that's going to be of help. I mean, it's one thing, to sit here and read an encyclopedia for you, but if you're not going to get anything out of it, it's a waste of everybody's time, and you're not going to really learn anything out of it. But if it's something that you really want, let us know. If there's something you want us to cover, let me know. Send me an email. Like I said, henry@henrygnoel.com, and I will address them. I will answer them. And I will bring them up as part of the shows as we go through the other things that I want to cover. And just as your reminder, we're going to deal with fears next, and hate after that. Very big ones as far as I'm concerned, because they are so interrelated for one, but they are stymied. They stifle us. They make us depressed. We are paralyzed because of fear and hate. Labels. We're not what we're called. We're not our title. We're not our numbers, our alphabets after our names. We're not any of that stuff. And we got to stop using the labels. Again, the thick heads and the thin skins. Brian is absolutely correct about that. We have got to understand where we're going with this and what's happening. We really have to work with this and understand the back off, and not let things bother us, and yet not be so stubborn that we can't learn from somebody else. The ego's role, the ego versus the inspiration, the problem resolution solution. I mean, that is so prevalent throughout this world nowadays. I mean, every conflict we're in uses problem resolution solution. Every false flag is problem resolution solution. Everything that's done is problem resolution solution in order to get the programs going. And we'll go through a lot of those. The simple basics. Go back to the simple basics to understand that no human is superior to any other human. We're all part of the same race. Belief systems. What have they done to us? What are they doing to us? What will they do to us if we continue to follow them? Nationalism and pride is a very touchy one because of the way we were brought up. National pride, the waving the flag, the whole 9 yards. And we're going to tear that all down. We're going to just break it all down into what it really is and what it really did to us. And then simply helping ourselves, how we are helping ourselves. So I want to thank everybody that's been in the thread. I want to thank all of the listeners on the radio. Thank you very much. I'm trying to get this a bit smoother. I'm trying to get a lot more information out there, but yet still in a controlled manner. Joseph, again, yep, love. We'll do it. Absolutely. The best 4 letters you've got out there. And Candace, honesty is the best policy. Yes, it is, ma'am. It certainly is. Always has been, and it always will be. We just have to sit our egos aside so we can accept the constructive criticisms. Sales Copy Academy, Lee Raleigh. Be the end. Listen, I'm sorry, I'm eyesight's a little bit off tonight. The square. Okay, it is okay. I can't read that one. I'm sorry, John. My eyes are just not working right. Anyway, but I want to thank you all, and I'll turn it over to Wayne. He's going to go ahead and shut this down now. And I want to thank everybody. I hope you have a great evening, and we'll see you here tomorrow. Same time, same place. Okay, different topic. We're going to talk fears. Okay, thank you guys. Have a great evening.
IPMNation.com.